Good evening, Sam. Round two.
It's a very formal introduction, Helen.
Yes, well, just for anyone who's listening, we're about to go and cycle in Europe for 3 months together, which is a wonderful holiday, but also a great opportunity to test our relationship, any relationship, riding through 4 countries in Europe on a push bike, that is. Just following up from the last session, the last podcast, we hope that over time we'll become more and more professional. Actually, I didn't put any makeup on, did you?
That's not a common Aspie trait.
No.
So no.
True. Oh well. This podcast people will just really listen anyway, I guess.
Yeah.
So let's talk about neurodivergence. And of course, once we start, I think there's many things to talk about. But I was discussing rejection and justice sensitivity. And with that ADH tendency to overthink things, I was wondering whether it was okay that I mentioned my mum and her fear of missing out and taking things personally. And I didn't want to frame that up as a criticism, more that I actually think part of this discovery tour is working backwards and seeing where the ADH or AS or Julie lineage is. And so and some of those qualities I can see very clearly in my mum, and both our mothers passed away last year, sadly. And mum was 93, very bright, active mind, amazing woman. And I guess there's so many things that I now recognise, seeing myself, seeing other family members, that this would have been true of my mum. And, I guess I would have liked to have known that. I would have liked her to have understood it more deeply. But as I say in my book, there are so many things that shape us, like our family of origin, our gender, the time in history that we were born into. So I can see a lot of traits now in my mother that are in me and other people in my family. And one of those is the vulnerability to rejection and justice sensitivity, which I stress can also be a great strength. So I'm wondering if you'd be open to talking about any of your discoveries. And I know we're putting the pieces together still, but about your mum working backwards, or anything you feel okay to say about that genetic connection.
Well, I guess through my discovery of being on the spectrum, certainly doing the working backwards, it became pretty clear that my mum is was on the spectrum as well. And sadly, I think she, unlike me and you, never really got an opportunity to explore that or to know, what that truly meant for her. Because I know my mum, I think it's fair enough to say my mum was pretty, could be a pretty difficult person, not that easy to get to know, and she could be pretty prickly and very protective of her space and her routine, and she was really practical. She wasn't a very loving mother in the ways that society values relational loving. Mum gave through being practical, and I think I've probably followed Mum down that path as well, because I know I'm much better at being practical than I am being relational.
I think that is a very common trait of people with autism, that giving in functional and practical ways, giving love like that. And I also think about your mum. I mean, you've had an intensive course of relational and emotional training, partly chosen even before we met each other, and partly by living with me and our complex family. So I think your mum, we often put it down to the time that she was born into, lack of emotional and relational training, being in a marriage that wasn't very loving, and living in a rural environment where I guess women had particular roles that were hard to break out of. So there were some things that were missing, and it did make sense, didn't it, when we realised. And it actually, I think, I know we're talking about your mum now, but I think I want to extrapolate from that point that when you start making sense of this, I believe it can help you be more compassionate and more understanding, more gentle of ourselves and others, and in this case, our mothers, because we have new perspective on some of the qualities in them. So what's one thing, I know I'm putting you on the spot because none of this is rehearsed, but what's one thing that helped you be more compassionate towards your mum once you understood the territory of autism?
Probably, I think my expectations changed in what do I mean by my expectations of my mum being different. I think I grew up, always, wanting a mum that was more kind of loving and caring and, engaging, and that's not who she was. So, but she was really practical and gave in so many other ways. So I guess knowing that about her, I guess it helped me become more compassionate to how she was. Sadly, probably a bit, I don't know, too late in some ways, because I think Mum, I don't think Mum was at a stage in her life where she would really be open to much change. So
yeah, actually, that's a great point, because I think with this whole idea of strengths-based neurodivergence, we can still change, we can still make changes, but if we don't understand why we are like we are, why we do what we do, it's much harder. Like I don't think your mum would have in any way been open to this. Well, we know she wasn't, we tried, but that's just too late to be able to talk about it in a way that was helpful to her.
Yeah.
So can I ask you just one more question about that, about you? Like, because you have gone on that journey very intensively. So what do you think you've taken in your understanding of autistic qualities and worked with, that's something you want to change about the way you are without seeing that as negative or a deficit?
Well, probably one of your pet hates, my extraordinary ability to procrastinate and put things off. That is, I know it is. It is. Maybe it's not. You don't have to be autistic to do that, but I think if you are autistic, it's more likely that you will procrastinate. And I know that I certainly do that, especially if it's stuff that I'm not sort of special interest, then it's harder to kind of get on and do it. But and I think some of it is I think the procrastination is possibly linked to the out of sight, out of mind compartmentalisation that Aspers do, and I do that.
Yeah. Well, there'll probably be autistic people out there that are thinking, well, I don't do that. And I think this is the fine-tuning stuff, because there are overlaps in neurodivergence, and both ADHDs and ASs have a great ability to go into hyperfocus. But I think the procrastination you're talking about, if I can just pull out some of the threads, is different between the two types of neurodivergence. So, like you said, Asperger's are more likely to have a special interest. That may change over time, but it goes with this desire to just focus on what you're interested in, sometimes at the expense of things that someone like your partner might think is important, but it's not intentional. And I think that's where this interesting idea of demand avoidance comes in, which is probably the topic for another whole podcast. But it is out of sight, out of mind, and if you don't know about this way of being, then you can take it very personally, as I certainly have. And I'm more vulnerable to take things personally. So, this is a tricky intersection. So, yeah, I don't think it's going offline like ADHDs can. And ADHDs can procrastinate because they've gone to something that's bright, shiny, but they've kind of gone offline in terms of what they're doing. I think once you get to do something, even if you don't like it very much, you'll hyper-focus on it. Especially once we've had some challenging conversations about priorities. Okay, so to come back to ADH, because there are lots of strengths, but you and I and everyone else has things that we need to work on. So that rejection and justice sensitivity, I'd like to talk about that a little more for me, because I think there's a great vulnerability to burnout, and I think at different times in my life I have been very close to that or in it, because I take on so much, and especially when there's a cause, it's like, that's not right, I've got to do something about it, and perhaps that's where I don't put enough energy into historically self-care, and that's a work in progress, because it's taken decades to learn I can't take on every single thing. You and I both have a hyper focus, an ability to be driven, and I think if we're on the same page about what's important, we work very well together. It's when we're not in agreement about what's important. And I think, what else do I want to say about that? Oh, this is what makes it hard when it's not scripted and it's late, and we wanted to squeeze this one in. That's what I do often. I do the opposite, actually. I just kind of think, okay, it's only a couple of hours till we get on the plane, let's squeeze another thing in.
I know. And this was like the last thing I wanted to do.
Yeah. It's true, but you did it. And I don't think under duress probably helps us centre and connect from our busy week of preparing for travel.
Yeah, so stay tuned.
Oh,
Next
are
time,
you wrapping up?
the next time we present, we'll be far, far away on our vacation
Yes, yeah.
in Europe.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very exciting. And we hope to do some podcasts as we go along. I did want to say, see, that's another ADH trait, is like just one more thing.
But if you make the podcast too long, people will get bored and switch off.
Right, that's a very good point. But I know what I wanted to say. I've forgotten the point. It's about intensity, because that's my work, is sometimes I know people can really enjoy that, I'm in a social situation and relaxed, or I'm talking about things I'm passionate about. If other people are interested, that's good. But because I'm so tuned in, if I get the slightest sense of, oh, someone's bored, or I don't like what I'm saying, that's when that rejection sensitivity kicks in. And it's like, oh gosh, okay, I've got to stop talking so much, which isn't that easy for me when I'm on a roll. But I've become hypersensitive to the emotions in the room, or what's happening, what the cues are, and maybe, too much, where then I don't feel historically like I'm okay as I am. So learning that I'm an ADHD actually helps a lot, because I think I'm more accepting of my intensity. It's always been part of me, just like my drivenness, and as long as I don't tip over, and Sam, you know my tip over point, and I know yours, then it's got its benefits.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I'm just going to have last shout out to my niece Kim. I can say that because she's a wonderful performer in one of her lives. She's got the most beautiful singing voice, but she also helped me in this journey of understanding, because Kim and I, for years, have had rich conversations, but it didn't cross my mind that she would be an ADHD. There are other people in the family that I already knew or thought was probably true. But Kim, you and I, and you put this in your book, had conversations when you realise that we think of autistic people as masking, but ADHDs can mask too, with overcompensating, with becoming super organised, but it's actually an unconscious compensation to the chaos that we can end up in if we don't do the compensation. And I can really relate to that. So my niece Kim is a super organised teacher. Just, you go to her place, everything has a place, and it's not what you traditionally think of as an ADH scattered mind. And we know some of the chaotic ones, and no judgment. It's just interesting that some people compensate by really working hard to, as I say in my book, tether the mind's tendency to want to go in 10 different directions, and others are kind of collapse into the exhaustion of not being able to switch off your mind's busyness. So, Sam, do you want to, like, since we're talking, a little bit about our relationship, what's the impact on you when I know you're giving me the wind up, when I get into that intensity and, mind going in 10 different directions?
Oh, it's hard to keep up, and it's can be exhausting, actually.
Yeah, I know that. That's true. Yeah. So what's your strategy for managing that?
Gosh, I don't know if I have a strategy for that one yet, because you don't, even if I say to you, just, Helen, take a break, go for a walk, you can be very dog with a bone like and will push through despite being really sore or tired or your brain's worn out. So, yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
Probably for me, what I have to learn is to not like it. After a while, it starts to irritate me and can because I literally can't keep up with you.
Yes.
So
yes.
then I get annoyed.
Yeah. I think that's fair. I think it is. Well, we both can be dog with a bone in different ways, but you're right. When I probably need to stop, and I want to get this. My need to finish is incredibly strong, and I won't let anything stand in the way. I just want to pick up that point you made just as a finishing place, which is I will often say to you, and this is in the book, one of our strategies is that's okay. I know we have different brains, and you can't respond to everything I've said. Just pick one, so I know you've tuned in. And I guess for you, I think it's that thing of saying, hang on, I'm in overwhelm, or I've just reached my limit. I just need some time out, and we can talk about this later.
Yeah.
Yeah. So did you want to enact that strategy now?
Yeah, I think this would be a really opportune time to wrap up because, we've covered a lot of territory in 20 minutes. And it feels like a natural place to have a pause.
Yeah, a pause in an ongoing conversation.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So, do you want to finish? Because I'll probably just keep going. No, only joking.
I can say that's all, folks. Until next time.
All right.
Stay safe.
See you in Europe.
Yeah. Look forward to it.
Yeah. All right.
See ya.